Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet, and today I'm going to show you 5 tips and tricks for finishing. And if you're new here today, or even if you've been around for a while, I invite you to subscribe, click that little notification bell, and let's get on with the first finishing hack. Well, first up today is the little mini scraper, and you can make one of these yourselves. I keep all of the old blades from my knife, but be careful because I poked myself earlier today with one of these. So even if they're not used anymore, they can still be sharp and pointy. But this is the handiest little thing. It's especially great when you're gluing up and you get a little bit of glue in a little corner, a little bit of squeeze out. You can just get right in there and get that out of the way there. Or if you get a drop, sometimes I'll get a drop of glue will fall on something. You can just scrape that off of there without having to sort of refinish the whole thing. Just a real handy little scraper. And you know what? You can use your hand tools, practice on your hand tools to make something like that. It's a fun little project. Quite some time ago, I wanted to know what a different finish looked like on some of the projects that I was using. So I made up these, what I call storyboards, and all it is a variety of stains and dyes, and I label them so that I know which ones they are, and I put them all in the same piece of wood. And even though I might be using different woods, at least this way I have an idea what they're going to look like comparatively on the same piece of wood, and that's important. Well, a bunch of you probably already noticed my acid brushes sitting on the side of the bench there. You know, these are great little things and they're inexpensive. They're handy in so many ways, and you know, I've been known to miss the odd spot when I'm finishing something somewhere, and I'll often notice it the next day. And without having to go back and dig out a brush and do a big cleanup job again, these are handy little things for little touch-ups. I want to talk about lifts for a second, and when I talk about lifts, I mean sometimes you're finishing little things like these wooden knobs, and if you lay them down on something, sometimes they'll stick to it, and very often the material that you're using, a varnish or whatever it is, it runs down a little bit and it sort of globs up around the bottom. What a great way to fix that is I just use a really thin piece of plywood and just put a few staples right through it, and then when you finish it, they'll actually sit on top. They'll sit up off the base, and that way the material can run down the sides and it doesn't glom up along the bottoms. But I take that even further. A few years ago, I got this. It's called a Versa Spin, and it's basically a turntable. I've got this size. I've got a little bit bigger one as well, and you've probably seen me use it in some of my finishing. Just a great way of finishing things. You can turn things around, especially things like boxes and things like that. And they also provide these little pyramids, these little painting pyramids, and they actually will snap right on there if you get them in the right configuration there. And this is really nice because now they're not going to move around on there. They're nice and firm. You can lift things off there if you're painting so that you can get all of the corners, all of the sides, you know, and then the next day you can do the other side or whatever it is you're doing. And one more thing, especially when I'm doing tables, the same thing happens with tables. Is I want to get the legs off the deck. I don't want them sitting on this because, again, when you finish, often there's a tiny bit of finish that will run down and it kind of gloms up along the bottom, and I always notice it because it looks bad, and it's hard to get rid of once it's down there because it's often dry. But this way, what I have here, a little hard to tell, but there's actually a screw, one screw through the center of every one of these, so that if I'm doing a little table or something, I can put one leg on each one of these so that they sit up off, so that if there is a little bit of finish that runs down, it just drips down. You can see that some of it's dripped down onto the base. It just runs right down, and it gives a very nice, clean finish to the bottoms of legs. I absolutely hate cleaning brushes because it's always the messiest part. I always get splatters on me. But you know what I found is that if you use one of these plastic, just a 1 gallon little plastic jug, and cut a hole in it like that, and if you cut it on that corner that's opposite the handle, it gives you a nice way of holding on to it. And then you can put it down on a surface, and as you're cleaning it and the paint is splattering, it's coming up inside the plastic, so it really saves a lot of my clothes. And you know, I buy expensive brushes because I know, and I've found that over the years that expensive brushes do give a better job when you're putting things like varnish and so on. So you really do need to keep cleaning these because they are expensive and they will last a long time if you clean them properly. But the other thing with using one of these is I save, whenever I'm using a paint thinner, I keep that paint thinner and I pour it in jars. And it may be a little hard to see because there's still a little bit of dye in this one, but if I move that a little bit, you can actually see how the paint materials settle to the bottom, and you can actually reuse that paint thinner on future things to clean future brushes. It's a great way of being, even more friendly with the environment. And the nice thing with this is it's much easier to pour. You can pour it this way, or you can even pour it back this way. Whatever works best for you. Real handy little finishing thing, these little plastic jugs. And last but not least, a number of the products that I purchase, I don't like the containers that they come in. It's hard to get the lids off. So I put them, many of them, not all of them, but many of them I put in little glass jars with special little lids on. Of course, I label them so that I know what they are. And especially when whatever it is, this is Osmo, and especially when they start getting lower in the can, I will take them out of the can and put them in a glass jar. And then as the glass jar goes down, as the material goes down, I use this canned air. And you know what? It doesn't work for everything, but it does work for a lot of things. And this particular one has something called difluorothane in it. Well, I don't know what that is, but what happens is when you open the lid of something, and very carefully, you don't want to spray it so that it's going to be blowing stuff around, but you very carefully blow it away. This one isn't going to matter because there isn't that much air in there. And then carefully put the lid on. What happens is it drives the oxygen out of the jug or the can, whatever it is you're spraying this into. Well, that concludes my video on tips and tricks, hacks for, if you will, for finishing. Don't forget there's an article on Woodwork Web. And don't forget, on Woodwork Web, you can also look up, there's something over 6,000 different articles on Woodwork Web, tons of good information. Go to the little search area in the top left-hand corner and type in a word or two and search it. Try it for fun, just see how it works. I'm Colin Cadet for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.